back in the mid-1950s, and you can kind of plot that wherever you'd like to in your own life history. I was 9, 10, somewhere along in that area, grade school boy, and very much a part of the ministry work that my dad was doing. He was a pastor. He and a guy named O.A. Lambert, O.A. Lambert, loved to do projects together. They loved to do fundraisers together. They created a little company called Shamrock Farms. And Shamrock Farms had its headquarters in a little tiny little building on the northeast corner of an intersection in Indiana called 6 and 15, United States Route 6, Indiana State Route 15. Wasn't much there, but I think this had been originally had been a filling station, and it had the most interesting little place, and they had a tiny little office in there. And it was in that framework of that little tiny Shamrock Farms office that some of their greatest plans were formed and put into action. And one year they decided they were going to raise money for some project, which I don't even remember at this point what the money was being raised for, but it was above and beyond what anybody could contribute. So they decided to rent some of the most productive, fertile ground in the entire area. In Indiana, they have this black, very lightweight soil called muck. And it's just basically peat moss that is in the process of decaying. And it is so rich and fertile, and it raises great, fantastic crops, but especially vegetables. And so they decided they were going to plant carrots in the Indiana muck soil and make quite a little bundle of money they could use for their charitable work. And so it was with that idea that they planted numerous acres of carrots, nicely lined up in rows, beautifully prepared. But there's one thing about Indiana muck soil. It will not only grow carrots, mint, all kinds of things, potatoes, all kinds of different things that are wonderful products. It also grows weeds. And I say this with a great deal of anxiety, because the first chance I was given as a boy in grade school to the project that they had prepared was the day that my dad took me out to the farm where they had rented this ground, and he had me walk out there and take a look at all of the acres of carrots that they had planted. And the carrots were thriving, but so were the weeds. There were so many weeds that for, I would say, 50% of the whole area that they had planted, you couldn't even see the carrots. The weeds had gotten so tall and they'd gotten so closely packed together that the carrots were small in comparison. And it's not easy to weed carrots, by the way. If you've never done that before, let me explain. If you open up when you're pulling carrots, weeds out, if you happen to open up the side of the root where the carrot is, the growing root of the plant, and if it's left exposed to the sunshine, that carrot will spoil. It won't be usable. So every time you pull a weed, you're checking to make sure that there's enough dirt pushed back up against the plant that the carrot will not spoil in the sunshine, exposed to the light and the air. Okay? As a 9 or 10-year-old boy, I looked out across that acreage, and it looked like the most amazing mess I had ever seen. And Dad said, "We're going to weed the carrots today. We are going to weed the carrots today. And here's the way you do it." We got down on our hands and knees, beautiful, warm, soft soil. And you pull and you pull and you pull and you push the dirt up against the carrots, and you pull and you pull and you push and you throw the old weed after it's been taken out of the earth, and you throw it over in the middle, and you just keep going down through the row, walking on your knees across there and pulling out weeds. Well, as a boy, my back would get hurting pretty badly bending down that way and bent over. And every once in a while I'd stand up and I'd look out across the vast area that we still had to weed. And I'd get pretty badly discouraged, thinking this job is never going to end. And my dad would quietly say, "Come back down on your knees, because this is where the work is. This is where the work is. Don't put your focus out there in the distance. This right here is what you're called to do." Now, I would go for a while and then I'd have to stand up, and I'd go for a while and I'd stand up. But he was always encouraging me the same words. Don't spend too much time up there looking around, because the work is right here, down on your knees, right here in front of you. Now, I'm going to say this because I think it's worth using as a teaching tool. There's a lot of people looking out over the situation and the circumstances in our world, and oh my, what a mess it looks like. What a mess it is. It's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to decide it's not worth the effort. Not going to make it. Never going to get all of those weeds out of there. You're never going to get productive crop. You're never going to win. This is a battle that's too big. I guess I would say to you the same thing my dad said. Get back down on your knees here, because this right here is where the work is. One weed at a time. One challenge at a time. One pull at a time. And always with care that you don't pull too much and do too much damage. You always have to stay moderate and make sure that everybody's protected and everything's together. And I'm going to tell you the end of the story is, because that's the whole point of the thing. We made it through that acreage. We, working together, one row at a time, one tiny little step on our knees at a time, we made it through that weeding process that weekend. And they sold the crop when it was harvested. They made enough money they could really do some work, some good things with the money that they had made from that project with Shamrock Farms. I take no pride of ownership in what they did. I did my part. I was glad to be a part of it. But the point is this: they never would have made a dime if we hadn't spent our time on our knees, one step at a time. Now, listen to me when I say this. There is a lot of work that needs to be done. There is a tremendous amount that our country needs. We have repair work. We have emergency work. We have critical emergency needs in every hospital and every emergency room, every nursing home, every food bank, every place you look in our nation, in our world. There's a lot of work to do. I'm going to ask you to join me. Come, get on your knees and start the work that needs to be done, because there is a reward that we can't live without. There's a reward waiting for us that is incredible. Come and join us. Join the work, because if we're working together, there's not any limits to what we can do. If we're asking God to just keep using us in His own magnificent divine plan, there's nothing we can't accomplish. So join me. The work's right down here. Right here. On your knees. Do what is right in front of you to do, so that we can bring the kind of victory that God is expecting into the world. Thank you for listening, being a part of this little video lesson. All right. Thank you so much.